Hey, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening, y'all? It's me coming back at you again with another live stream vid. I just want to say happy Sunday to everyone out there, and I hope everyone's having a great weekend so far. And we're living a stress and anxiety free life, as I hope. I know we're all going through some challenges right now, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, or mentally, I should say, but we'll all get through it. The only thing I can tell you is that just be blessed to see another day, that you're breathing air for another day. So, don't let your best days to get, let your best days get behind you as far as dealing with your mental and financial challenges, whatnot. So, just thought I'd have share my little, share my words of wisdom in that department, whatnot. So, yeah, just want to chop it up. What's up, Mala? How you doing, sir? How you doing? Yeah, I just want to chop it up about this weekend's boxing event, and lots to cover too, including that because I have been away for a minute, not too long, but me, I do have a more occupied and busy life, so that's more of a priority than coming on here on YouTube and doing a live stream. Obviously this is a hobby for me, and I enjoy talking about boxing. I like covering it. I've been watching the sport since I was 5 years old, so it goes back 3 decades, whatnot. Or actually, isn't it 3 decades or 4 decades? Let me do the math in my head. So yeah, one, two, three. So about technically 4 decades. I've been watching this boxing for 4 decades. Yeah, it's been a very, 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 very long time. So yeah. Anyhow, let's get into it. I thought I'd make this a little interesting live stream because let me see if this actually works here. Because I'm going to play a little Fightcade, retro arcade Street Fighter, games like Street Fighter Alpha 2, which is my favorite. As you can tell on my avatar icon screen here, there is the artwork of Street Fighter Alpha 2. You have a young Ryu here, and then you have Akuma right standing, towering over him. And in that background picture, that is Sakura. Sakura is a a fangirl, as you want to call it, of Ryu. She idolizes him so much. She wants to be like him. She mimics his moves. More of an amateur style type of way, but she's very effective, though. I will say that with her amateur style of Shotokan karate, when she tried to implicate Ryu's style, but it is what it is. I mean, you're a video game nerd, you understand what I'm talking about. If you're not, then it's all good. You don't have to. Yeah. So let me try to test this out to see if this actually works pretty well. If I can do a double screen, I can split the screen where I can see the comments and also do this at the same time. So let me see if that can work. Uh, let's see. Let's see how this works. Okay, so you can see Fightcade, but I can't see your comments, so I'm not sure if this is gonna work. I'll do the best I can do here on that. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen there. And let me see if I can do it again. Let's see if I can split it. Let's see if I can do it this way. Uh, uh-oh. Let's cancel that for a minute. Yeah, so let me see if I can make this work, and then I'll get back to the comments. All right, let's see if I can present. All right, I'm gonna try it this way. Got it. All right, so let me see if I can do it this way. So here's Fightcade. Okay, there's one way I can do it. I can do it like this, but I'll have a small vision. So I'm basically going to play this, and we'll look at you guys' comments coming in while I go over the list of topics. So very unique thing. Just testing the waters out on this and see where it goes. If it works, great, great. If it doesn't, so what? You know, not gonna lose sleep over it. Oh, see Ryder, I ain't seen him in a long time. All right, he's back in here. You know, Mari, I had a couple matches with him. He's pretty good, but I beat him. So on a couple sets, let me just test this out if the training works out very well. So anyways, I'm seeing the comments coming in. Shout out to Mr. Classical and Mala, obviously. Yeah, let's get into it real quickly. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to get before I get into the boxing part, I want to talk about yesterday's other sporting events that occurred yesterday in the United States. If you are football fans, and I mean by football, soccer, now we call soccer here because we have the NFL, which is the National Football League, and we have to distinguish the two because if we call Major League Soccer here Major League Football, then people will have a bit of confusion there, and then we may be looking at trademark issue with the NFL. But needless to say, though, we had a couple finals that took place yesterday. Very important final matchups. We had the MLS Cup that featured the Los Angeles Football Club (LAFC), which is the team that's based here in Los Angeles, which is not my team. My team's the Galaxy because they have history here. Oh, it's hard to hear me? Okay. Let me see why. I think it's because of the volume here. Let me see if I can turn it down here. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you got a good point. It's the volume Cave. It's gonna drown out everything I said. So Mala, you got a point. Yeah, I gotta try to turn it down. Let me see if there's any way I can do it. Let's see. This video option. Select plugin. Use low pass filter. There should be a way to do it here on Fightcade. I don't know why. All right, let me close it out and see what happens if I can do it this way. Let me see volume controls on Fightcade. Well, I don't need help installing it because I already know how to do that. All right. Yeah, there's no way around it, guys. So, actually, there's a way because I see guys do it all the time when they do video live streams. They have Fightcade on, and the volume is not much of an issue, but they have good volume. I just want to know if there's any way I could splice that up. There has to be a way for me to do it. Just got to figure out how. Okay, let me go back here. Okay. Cord AVI. Toggle here. All right. Okay. How do I change the volume? Because it's coming from my laptop. Oh, that's not how I do it. All right, select plugin. All right, let's do this. If I select the plugin, you probably won't hear it. Oh, it won't let me select that option. Use low fast filter. All right, guys. You know what? Let me get to live stream. I'll deal with it later. Let me deal with it later. This is not really important. Okay. So where was I? Okay. Here we go. All right. Let's get into it. So, uh, like I said, very interesting sporting events that occurred yesterday. So we had the MLS Cup final here, which is a very important thing here in the United States when it comes to evolving and developing and enhancing the world of football. The sport of football, which is soccer, throughout the entire world, which we already know throughout centuries and history, and decades and centuries, football is the most popular sport. It is the oldest sport, so we all know that, and we're trying to grow it here in the United States, and it's been growing rapidly over the last since 2005, maybe 2006, after the arrival of David Beckham, when he played for the Galaxy for several years. And you had Robbie Keane that came in along with Landon Donovan and others who've been here to help that squad become dominant over the years, a dynasty team. But anyhow, LAFC came in around 2017. And their first year they made they did have home advantage. They lost the first round to Real Salt Lake, RSL. Then the year after that, they made it to the conference final against the Seattle Sounders, and they got dominated in that what you call it in that game. And then the year after that, the COVID lockdowns with the MLS's back tournament, they did qualify, but they didn't make it to the conference final that year. And they choke in the CONCACAF Championship League too. But anyhow, they didn't make the playoffs last year because of a lot of riddle of injuries. But this year they were the Supporter Shield winner, and they were the well, I'll get into that in a second. They were the Supporter Shield winner. And the thing is, too, the Philadelphia Union also had the same record of points, amount of points that they recorded this year as LAFC. But the problem is, the difference is the LAFC had on the tiebreaker because they beat the Union in one of the games earlier this year, and they had also drew twice. And not only that, they had a better record overall, wins and loss record, than the Union. So that's the reason why LAFC was awarded the Supporter Shield. But anyhow, they did meet the final. It was number one versus number one seed. We haven't seen that in a very long time in MLS, and it was a very good game. The Union, I have to say, really had it in their grasp, in the extra time. And what happened was they had two extra times. They're up 3-2. It was a very dramatic back and forth game. Gareth Bale, people wonder when he was going to show up because he came over and he played, he played some amount of games coming off the bench as a sub. Of course, we all know he wants to maintain most of his fitness for the World Cup on his Wales national squad, whatnot. But he made a game-defining goal that forced the game going to penalty shootouts, which LAFC ultimately won because the Union didn't even make one penalty kick whatsoever. They missed one badly by Daniel Gazdag, and he slipped when he missed it, and it was badly missed. And he was mostly hurt when he missed that penalty kick. Then you had the Kevin McCarthy, who had is it Kevin McCarthy or Matt McCarthy? Yeah, I think that's Matt McCarthy, who's a sub, who was subbing for Matthew Creepo, who actually left the game late because of a horrific leg injury. Man, he was going for a sliding tackle to keep his team in the match, but yeah, it was bad. But yeah, he was in good spirits. He was telling his team, "Look, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. You guys win the game, whatever." Tell AFC. But uh, yeah, I mean, the point I'm getting at is that the Union had the game and they lost. They were, they were in a very hostile crowd. Whenever they scored, the LAFC fans would throw trash at them every time they would score and celebrate. I mean, that goes to show how fans are. But let's be fair, the Philly fans are no different. I mean, look how the way they treated the NYCFC team and their fans. So when they beat them in the conference final this year, I mean, it was a rematch of the last year's final. But anyways, my point is that the Union lost the MLS Cup final, a game they should have won. They couldn't hold on the lead with at least 2 minutes left in second extra time and double extra time. Before Gareth Bale scored that goal over Jack Elliott, and they lose. And then you have the Phillies that lost to Houston Astros in 6 games in the World Series. And we all, if anybody knew that the Philadelphia Phillies didn't have, I mean, they did put up a valiant effort, but we all knew the outcome before that World Series was even announced. That's why people were arguing that the Yankees and the Astros was a better matchup. But it is what it is. The Yankees didn't come through. I mean, I think they were there in the ALCS, and yeah, they lost. So, the point is, it's a bad day for the Philly fans right now because you lose the MLS Cup and the World Series the same day. That is something I've probably never seen done in history. Maybe it's happened in other cities where you have two major sporting event teams lose a final the same day in the final elimination game. I mean, as far as the Phillies is concerned, they had to win yesterday, otherwise they to force a Game 7 of the World Series. But in this case, with the MLS Cup, it's a one and done situation. It's a single game elimination, which many people prefer. But it is a sad day for the Philadelphia fans, man. They were hoping that the Union would come through. The Union had a chance. They were up, in extra time. They blew it. They lost. They missed 3 penalty kicks, and to be fair, the 2 penalty kicks, aside from the Daniel Gostock one, they were actually not bad. It's just that they were up against a more determined goalkeeper who dictated every move and blocked those, who saved those goal kicks. So it is what it is, man. Shout out to Gareth Bale. I mean, the man's got another trophy in his collection. He's won many titles. I think he's won more than Zoltan Ibrahimovic. Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't know about him. I think he's got more titles than him. Yeah. So other than that, Gareth Bale, yeah, shout outs to him. What question is he going to stay at LAFC? Rumor mill is that he may stay because he likes the golf course here, but it is what it is. I just had to chime in on that. Yeah, what up, big boys? Yeah, yeah. So now let's get into the boxing part. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it now. DIMITRY BIVOL dominates ZURDO RAMIREZ. That was a clinical dismantling of a man that is way bigger than you. And what do I say about this? I initially thought this was going to be a very difficult fight for DIMITRY BIVOL because here he is going up against a man who weighed close to over 200 pounds. This is the second time that ZURDO RAMIREZ has weighed over 200 plus pounds in a light heavyweight fight. And as somebody pointed out, I believe, I forgot who it was. Someone pointed out that he doesn't even look fleshy or a little flabby when when he rehydrates. He looks like he looks pretty muscular. It's like, dude, how do you make 175 and you don't have, you don't have too much ounce of body fat? That's to me, it's kind of I'm not gonna go there and speculate, but anyhow, it didn't do Bivol. I mean, not Bivol. It didn't do ZURDO RAMIREZ any favors at all because you would think, and I would think, that he would oppose his size and his strength and bully DIMITRY BIVOL, but that's not the fight we got. He fought a very cautionary fight. He tried to outbox the boxer, and we all knew that was a mistake. Looking at that, now, how did I score this? So the first 4 rounds, it was even. I gave ZURDO the first round, Bivol the second, ZURDO the third, and Bivol the fourth. And after that, pretty much Bivol dominated the entire fight. You can give ZURDO RAMIREZ maybe one more round, at least one round within those middle and late rounds. But other than that, he didn't win no more than 3 rounds on my card because I scored it 9-3. Some had it 10-2. I can definitely live with that score, but definitely no more than 3 rounds for ZURDO. He completely got dismantled, dominated. And what I'm trying to figure out is why did he try to outbox Bivol, knowing he wasn't going to win that fight doing that? I don't understand why he was doing that. Maybe because they have sparred together. He knows Bivol. He knows what he can do. And maybe he punches harder than we initially thought. And we all know Bivol could punch. You know what I mean? And the thing is, people will disagree with that. It's like, well, wait a minute, he doesn't have that many knockouts. So how do you know that he could punch hard? I'm like, well, why would Canelo continue to back up against him and he was punching at him? I mean, same thing with ZURDO. When ZURDO was getting hit with all these exchanges in the inside with these heavy shots, he was backing up and he didn't want to engage. So he literally was taking off his off his game plan. And it was also unique too is that Bill was actually giving him some angles. He wasn't standing in front of him. He was giving him angles. He's making him think a lot. And that's very unique for an orthodox fighter to do that to a southpaw. Now, I'm not saying that Gilbert Ramirez is a slick southpaw, but he's a southpaw and he does have pretty good feet too. And he usually gives angles too when he fights. So That's a very unique display and very credible performance by DIMITRY BIVOL. He made it look very easy, and I have to say that Canelo was more competitive in that fight, but than Zurdo was, in my opinion. But styles make fights because Canelo Alvarez is a much more shorter fighter, and Bivol will have to punch down on him rather than punch up. So, and this time around, Bivol was the shorter fighter. So, but it would, what's also unique and strange about this that Bivol actually stood in front of Zurdo pretty much the entire fight. Again, you expect him to keep the fight at a distance on a back foot, but he didn't. He stood right in front of him. And what I'm impressed about Dimitri Bivol about is how defensively good that he is. He's a very good defensive fighter, deceptively good. I mean, because when you sit there with a high guard, you think you're punching through his guard, you think you're getting in your shots, and in actuality, you're not, because all he's doing is blocking the shots, and he's moving his head while he's keeping his high guard. And then when you try to throw your shots, he gets out of range real quickly and then comes back in. So he gets his shots, he comes back out, he gets in, comes back out, he gets in, switches an angle, and throws his shots. I mean, this man is just incredible, man. I mean, not saying he cannot be beat. I mean, right now at light heavyweight, I think there's no one else left other than Arthur Beterbiev, to be honest with you. There's no one else left up to beat him than Beterbiev. Now, to be fair, Beterbiev is dealing with injuries. He's getting old, so maybe it's a perfect time for Bivol to take him out. Now, again, Beterbiev is a guy who also has got very good boxing skills as well when he needs to use it. So this is going to be a very compelling matchup, but to be fair, how realistically will that fight happen? Where does Dimitri Bivol go from here? I know Eddie Hearn has hinted that maybe a rematch with Canelo Alvarez is in the horizon, but let's be honest here. Do we really want to see that rematch? I mean, after that display that Bivol did on Zurdo, they were hoping, the Canelo Alvarez team that is, they were hoping that maybe Zurdo would slow him down, but that didn't happen. So Canelo looking at that, probably thinking, "Oh shit, nah, man, I can't fight this guy, especially at this current form, at his peak right now. Maybe I should let him go off and um, Beterbiev. That's if Beterbiev can get past Anthony Yard, which he's expected to do. Let him take care of Yard, and then let Bivol, let Beterbiev take care of Yard, and then Bivol and Beterbiev fight. Now Bivol does win, and trust me, that's not going to be easy victory. That's going to be a victory where he's going to probably take a lot of damage. At the same time, he's going to be inflicting damage as well, and he'll slow down after that, after those heavy shots and blows that he's taken from Beterbiev. That's probably what Canelo's team is going to angle this, and they're going to say, you know what, let him go off and fight for the Undisputed Championship. And if he wins in a very close, in a difficult fashion, then maybe it's a perfect time to take on the rematch. That's probably where they're going to have to do. Yeah, I agree, Molly. Canelo probably his best bet to stay at 168. But again, if they are angling and they are planning to do that rematch, then Canelo's going to have to wait a little bit longer. If I'm him, I'll wait. I'll let Bivol go off and do that undisputed fight. That's if Beterbiev gets past Yard, which he's expected to do. So, yeah. Bruce Gas. Bruce goes. What's up, man? Long time no hear, man. What's up? What's up? What's up? Let me get through the comments here. Um, Yeah, I agree. Canelo's got no business fighting him again. But again, like I said, if he plans to fighting him again, then he's gonna wait a little bit longer. He ain't gonna fight Bivol anytime soon. So forget about planning that rematch in May. Probably at the end of next year, then that's probably be a perfect time. That's on the contingent if Bivol slows down. Should he fight Arthur Beterbiev? Because I think that's what Canelo's going to do. Go and let him go off and fight Beterbiev. Let him take damage in that fight, and then come back and do that rematch when he's softened up. Not saying I'm an advocate of a fighters doing that, but for his case, of any chance of him winning that fight, he's gonna have to wait for Bivol to slow down in dangerous fights. So yeah, Mr. Classic. Mr. Classic says that the funny thing is that all those silly tales about sparring sessions during Bivol supposedly got dominated by Zordo. Yeah, you know what? I heard about that too. But then again, just because a guy like Zordo Ramirez dominated Dimitri Bivol in sparring doesn't mean that's going to translate into an actual fight. Because again, Zordo knows Bivol very well. They sparred countless times, and he knows what he can do. So that's probably why he knew that it'd be better not to go after him and pressure him and take as many shots as many shots against this guy, because he'll counter me. He's gonna beat me to the punch, and he's gonna mentally drain me from me trying to catch up with the guy. And like I said, though, Bivol can punch if he wants to. He can, if you force him to. It's kind of like a Guillermo Rigondeaux situation. Rigondeaux's the type of guy who doesn't like to do exchanges, but if you force him to do so, he'll do it. You know what I mean? Prime version of Guillermo Rigondeaux that I'm talking about. Not this version, but a prime version. So, yeah. I don't think Benavidez would do much better. No, I don't think so either. I don't think so. I mean, Benavidez has probably got faster hands than Zordo, but he's much slower on his feet than Zordo Ramirez. Much more slower on his feet. And he gets hit a lot more than Zordo. So, yeah, I don't think he'll do much better against Bivol than than Gilberto Ramirez. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that. I heard about Mark Hunt and his stoppage win over Sonny Williams. So, yeah, shout out to Mark Hunt. Congratulations to him. Definitely a redemption fight. I don't know what he's going to do after that. I mean, he is 48 years old. Will he continue to fight? I don't know. I mean, he is a heavyweight. They do have a lot of miles on their clock. So we'll see. All right. Yeah, I scored this. Yeah, Billville. Yeah, if you got a 118, 110, no problem with that. But I scored it 117, 111. That's how I had it. Mr. Classic says Bivol is very confident in his abilities. Of course, it also helps that he has elite skills. Yeah, but he's also been a long time amateur, especially on the European scene. So that also helps as well. Yeah, his punch accuracy is very, very impressive. I have to say. I have to say. Yeah, the thing about Bivol, I know, Big Boy, you just brought this up. I was going to get into that. He was asked about this Canelo rematch, and he said, you know what? He said, honestly, he said, I don't mind the rematch. But however, to me, what's more important for me is the undisputed fight. He said legacy matters more than money. So I like that type of attitude. I actually like a fighter who has that type of mentality. He's been a champion for many years, and he doesn't show any form of complacency, because it seems like the man lives and breathes fighting. That's all he's done all his life. And he religiously embodies that. And that's why I respect that of a guy. He said, look, the money is great to fight Canelo Alvarez in a rematch. I know it's very astronomical, but to me, what's more important for me is getting all those other belts, and that's legacy for me. If I could beat Arthur Beterbiev, a man who's been dominating for years, who's dominated the amateur scene, beat all the best fighters that we see today there, who had to develop a great reputation there, a fearsome reputation, as you want to call it, more so than Gennady Golovkin, in my opinion, then if I beat him, a destructive monster, if I beat him and gather all the belts, then that to me is more important than fighting Canelo in the rematch. And that's not to take a dig at Canelo, but I like that type of mentality because Canelo doesn't have a belt at 175. Yes, fighting a rematch against him is lucrative, but right now, let Canelo do his thing at super middleweight. He's the undisputed champion there. Let him do that. In fact, the rematch would be me a lot more lucrative, a lot more sense if Bivol wins that fight against Beterbiev. Why? Because if he beats Beterbiev, you have the lineal undisputed champion against the lineal undisputed super middleweight champion. That's something we never seen happen in boxing history. Let's make that happen. Let's see it. I think that will make more sense if Bivol does come off that win against Beterbiev. The rematch, that is, against Canelo. Yeah, he is retired. Okay, good. Yeah, 48 years old. Mark Hunt shouldn't be fighting anymore. I mean, it's time for him to hang it up. His health is more important. And speaking of health, I just want to deeply get into Jason Rosario. He retired immediately after his knockout loss to, I forgot who it is, but I think it was his debut fight at middleweight, and he got knocked out, and and he's what? How old is Jason Rosario? 27 years old. 27 years old. And people wondering why is he retiring so young, and he's only 27. Well, yeah, but the problem is that Jason Rosario's his losses would have been horrible knockout losses. bad knockout losses. And after the upset win over J. Rock Williams, he's lost 3 of his last fights, all by knockout. And before that, the Charlo loss, he had one loss on his record, and that was against Gallimore. So Nathaniel Gallimore, and that was a bad TKO loss. So yeah, the man is taking some horrible knockout losses, and he knows when it's time to hang it up, man. And his punch resistance is definitely not. It's not to say he didn't really have great punch resistance to begin with, but he knows his limitations, and he knows his durability is not quite there. So um, he's definitely retiring. Hats off to him. He was unified super light welterweight champion for yeah, didn't have a successful title defense. That's okay, but it is what it is. He beat J Rock, best win of his career. Been in there with Jamel Charlo, who's now the undisputed 154 champion. He's been in there with who else? Well, the other two guys were more supposed to be touch-up fights after that Jamel Charlo loss, but it is what it is. So anyhow, on to the other chats here. Um, let's see. Uh, Classic says that I think it was Baumgartner who tweeted that her head hurt while watching Zurdo get punched in the head like that. I mean, if you're looking at it, because obviously, I guess she would know because she was there in front row or whatever case may be watching the event. She was there at Abu Dhabi yesterday, and yeah, him getting punched to the head like that, his head snapping back with those shots. Yeah, that right there was like, what in the hell? I mean, you sitting there thinking, how the hell you could take punches like that, especially with guys putting on 10-ounce gloves punching you like that. So, yeah, man. Where does Zurdo go from here, man? I mean, what does Golden Boy do with him at this point? Yeah, that loss right there. I mean, definitely a pretty significant setback. Not to say that he won't come back, but what does he do? Because Golden Boy doesn't really can't do much with their fighters. I mean, they're doing right now is matching their fighters up against in showcase events. That's all they've been doing. And Hyman McGee, I'm not even like I said, I haven't talked about Hyman McGee in such a long, long, long time. So again, he's one of those situations where like with Tank Davis, I'm not going to talk about Tank Davis or Hyman again unless they do something. That's all I got to say. I don't give a damn if Tank fans get mad at me for saying this, but he's the guy to do something, man. Right now, he's not doing anything. I don't care about those minor titles, okay? If you guys going to give him a lot of credit for winning the minor belt at the WBA, then you got to do the same thing for Gennady Golovkin. Because as I recall, you guys all, what's the term they use in the UK? Slated Gennady Golovkin for being a regular champion, which, yeah, it was the right thing to do because that's not you cannot unify with that title. But yet, you give Tank Davis full credit for winning that title twice. So, yeah, you can't have it both ways, guys. It is what it is. But like I said, though, I'm not giving him no attention on this platform unless he does something. I mean, why should people care? Because I'm only a small channel, right? But that's just my opinion. That's just the way it goes. So, let's see here. Yeah, Yeah, I saw Rosario lost. Yeah, he looked bad against Charlotte. Yeah, he was doing okay. He had some success here and there, but his punch resistance is just bad. It's not that good. He just doesn't have very good punch resistance. So yeah, yeah, smart by Rosario. He knows he was in danger of being permanently damaged. Yeah, he knows his own body, and like I said though, those who are going to criticize him for retiring at the age of 27, especially if you know you don't have a great punch resistance, you've been knocked out, all your losses have ended in bad knockouts, then yeah, it's time for you to hang it up, man. You've lost 3 fights in a row. All yeah, again, they're all by knockouts. So time to let it go. You made some good money, invest very well, open up a gym or become a trainer. That's all I gotta say. Um, yeah, moving on to a list of topics here. Miles says, I don't think Tank will ever do anything. He's like a gimmick. Yeah, the thing about Tank is that he's complaining about not getting the big fights. He's going on social media ranting about his current relationship with Mayweather. Then he takes his tweets down. He'll put it back up, takes it back down. So it's kind of a bizarre pattern from him. Very bizarre pattern. How did let me see. Ramonov did well. Rakimov did well getting off the floor and KO Barrett. Yeah. You know what? I was gonna talk about that real quickly. Yeah, Zelfa Barrett got stopped in the ninth round by Rakimov. I mean, he was winning the fight. Barry, he was doing very well, boxing off the back foot, keeping that range. But what happened was is that he injured his right leg, I believe. He couldn't keep his balance together, so since he didn't have his right leg in place, he couldn't move around. So he had no choice but to try to trade off with Rakimov, and that was like Rakimov's best chance to win that fight was to stand toe to toe, and Barrett couldn't beat him in the exchanges. So that's why he ended up getting stopped. And I think his uncle Pat Barrett was in his corner and he threw in the towel, which is the right thing to do because look, your fighter's injured. He's trying his best to avoid the onslaught against Rakimov. He can't do it. He doesn't have his leg. So you live to fight another day. You know what I mean? So devastating loss. It was for the vacant IBF super featherweight title. Actually, no, not super featherweight. I'm sorry. Yeah, super featherweight, which is junior lightweight. Yeah, super featherweight title, and it was vacated by George Cordina. Or actually, no, he got stripped. Yeah, he didn't vacate the belt. He got stripped by the IBF. I guess because I guess Cordina refused to defend it against Rakimov, I believe. It was his mandatory. I don't know why he got stripped. I think that was the reason. I don't know. But the IBF, they don't play games, boy. When they call that mandatory, you better fulfill that obligation. Or if you need an exemption, you better fill that exemption out in a timely order. The IBF does not play. So that's the one thing I can say about them. When it comes to their mandatories, they're very strict on enforcing those mandatories. Very strict. So, yeah, so Self-Aware, can he come back? Absolutely. Will there be a rematch between him and Rakimov? I guess it would. They probably will have a rematch because again, Barrett was winning the fight before the stoppage. So this definitely warrants a rematch. If he did get injured, if the fight went the distance, he would have won. Maybe. More likely he would have won. I wouldn't say that was definite. More likely he would have won. So definitely wouldn't mind the rematch. As long as he's 100% healthy, he can get that leg to recover fully. To wrap up the zone card a little bit, Chantel Cameron dominates Jessica McCaskill. Now, what do I have to say about this particular fight? Um, Man, I didn't expect this fight to go one-sided the way it did. And it pains me to say this because I'm a Jessica McCaskill fan. And Rick Ramos, he and I had a brief exchange on my channel. He commented on one of my videos. We were supposed to do an interview, but that's my fault that I didn't follow up on that. So Rick, you was listening, my bad, man. Hopefully we can, sit down and talk. But obviously, maybe he won't talk to a small channel like me because they're doing bigger, better things. They have a platform at the Boxing Voice. So it's all good. Shout out to Rick Ramos and Jessica McCaskill. But it pains me to say that Chantel Cameron completely dismantled and dominated Jessica McCaskill. And I have to say is that Jessica looked very lethargic. She looked lost. She looked she just didn't look very coordinated at all. Now, yes, Jessica is not the most technical fighter out there. We all know that. But after the Katie Taylor loss, which was a controversial loss, by the way, she improved in her technique. She's added more wrinkles, added more weapons to her arsenal. She used more effective with her jabs. She was throwing more combinations rather than looking for one shot. But it seems like she was revert back to her old style that got, in the beginning of her career. And you cannot fight some like that with a person like Chantel Cameron because she's gonna pick you apart. And what I thought going into the fight leading up to it, yes, Chantel Cameron is a much faster fighter. She's faster footed. And and she's definitely taller and bigger than Jessica, from the looks of it. But the thing is that what I expected Jessica to do is, to close the gap by going into the body, digging into those body shots to make Chantel Cameron more stationary. But what I was surprised is that, given the fact that I thought that Chantel Cameron would fight more on the back foot, but she mixed it up. She kept the fight at a distance, but at the same time, she was willing to trade with Jessica McCaskill. And, that's pretty much Jessica's best chance to win the fight against Chantel, but she was winning the exchanges, blinding her with shots and counter shots all over the place. It's like, what in the hell? It's like, what's going on, Jessica? So, Yeah, it does surprise me that Chantel Cameron won the fight. Don't get me wrong. I thought this was going to be a much competitive fight. It could have gone either way. I thought McCaskill was going to pull it out because she had a better run. She's beaten better opponents. She's coming off she's coming off a string of wins against great wins, obviously, against Ania Sanchez, Erica Frias, Cecilia Breakus twice, whatnot, and her recent first title defense at welterweight as an undisputed champion there. So she's had some very good wins, and then she was going on a roll, and her and Rick were talking about potentially having a showdown with Clarissa Shields, which is a big money fight. And she wanted to have that fight at catchweight. Okay, understandably, because Jessica's a much smaller fighter. But here's what I don't understand though. I heard somebody commented about this on one of those channels, I believe. Um something was said. I think it was on the Boxing Voice podcast that they were willing to go up to 154 without any weight stipulations to fight Terry Harper. I get it because I think Jessica is probably naturally bigger than Terry Harper. But why would you want to fight Terry Harper at 154 fully, but not Clarissa at the full weight? But you want her to do a catch weight. That right there, okay. I know somebody probably had to call him out on that, but anyhow, needless to say though, I guess that was quoted. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure for sure. I'm not for sure that was the case, but that's what I heard. But anyhow, I was surprised how this one-sided this fight was, man. I was very surprised. Yeah, big boys, I see that some of the bookies had Cameron every favorite. I was shocked about that, but they knew what was going on. They probably knew something was going to happen. They got it right. Man, oh man, that was such a one-sided fight. And I mean, Jessica is one of my favorite fighters. I like Jessica McCaskill, and again, I like Rick Ramos, but the game plan was just totally off, man, totally off. And what Jessica did, what the mistake she made, is that she kept handhunting the entire fight. And another thing is too is that she was swinging wild hooks like from a far distance. It's like you can see that coming from a mile. It's like, Jessica, what are you doing? You got to throw that hook. You got to set up that hook. You got to set up that shot. You can't just throw it from a far distance. You got to set up that shot. You got to dig the body, work your way in with the jab. What she did is certain spurts of the fight. And to be fair to Jessica, she did try to catch up at the end. She was getting her timing a bit better, I think, in the 7th round. So she was actually fighting a much better fight at the end, but it just wasn't enough. So for me, I scored the fight 7-3. If anything, 8-2. She clearly lost the fight, and so yeah, man, devastating loss, man. Where does she go from here? I think she's still the undisputed champion at welterweight, but I think she has no intention of fighting there because that weight class is too big for her. So she's definitely going to stay down at 140 from the looks of it. I think those belts have been vacated already. So now, I mean, what does she do at 140? I mean, there's some fights she can make there. I mean, she can still fight Natasha Jonas at 154. She's got Michaela Mayer. She's got Alicia Baumgartner. She can make those fights. So there's still a lot of fights for her to make. Whatnot. Amanda Serrano's still there. So she still got plenty of options. But me personally right now, I like Jessica. But if you put her there with Amanda Serrano right now, I'll have to favor Serrano to win that fight. I mean, styles make fights because Serrano is more stationary, but Serrano is faster than her. So that's going to be a very telling fight right there. That more likely be a rock and sock'em fight if you think about it. So yeah. Anyhow, Boxing Learner, shout out to Boxing Learner in the chat. He says that I think Shields will fight at 154 next. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if she does, I mean, all power to Clarissa. I mean, what's she going to do at 154? She pretty much cleaned everybody out there. I mean, even though the talent pool is not that big at 154. I think you know what? The fight they were talking about is Natasha Jonas. So, yeah, that would be a good fight. Natasha Jonas is is on track to be an undisputed champion there. So, why not collect the undisputed belt to get at 154? So, yeah. Yeah, Justice Tooney. Yeah, I know he lost his one. He had a setback and he had a comeback fight. So, yeah, Hooney, I think the one thing I'd be very, very wary about is his style. He does have a crowd pleasing style, but he gets hit way too much. So that's going to be very detrimental for him going forward. So he's going to have to be more careful when it comes to shot selection, and he's going to have to be a little bit more mindful when it comes to defense. So yeah, yeah, exactly. Her and Jonas is going to be the fight. Yeah, I mean that would be a damn good fight. That'd be a big fight in the UK. Natasha Jonas versus Clarissa Shields. But if you add, if you ask me who's going to win that fight, definitely going for Clarissa. I like Natasha, but I don't know, man. I don't like her chances in that fight. But hey, anything can happen. Anything can happen because I've seen plenty of upsets in women's boxing. I mean, there's more. I think there's more upsets in women's boxing than it is in female box. I mean, in males boxing, I believe. So yeah, uh, yeah, that's all. That's all I got to say about that. Jessica will definitely come back strong, but obviously, if her and Rick definitely going to have some things they have to work on. Some outstanding issues they've had for a while now. It's just that her habit of trying to lunge in with those wild left hooks and right hooks sometimes is like, Jesus Christ, you got to set up that shot. But the thing about Jessica, she's very durable. I think she got the best of all the female fighters out there. She undoubtedly, arguably got the best durability out of all of them. Chris is very durable too. Uh, so I mean that, and she's got heavy hands. She has very good work rate. So yeah, that's definitely something that that's always a plus for Jessica McCaskill. That's always got her through fights. But yeah, I mean this was the Chantel Cameron one. This was I didn't expect this to be her Cameron to be this dominant. I really didn't. But my hat's off to Chantel Cameron. She is the undisputed light welterweight champion. So now she's inches of that Katie Taylor showdown. So I guess that's the fight they're gonna make after next, I believe. So Chantel Cameron versus Katie Taylor. That's gonna be a good fight. Who I favor winning that fight? I don't know. Let me just say this: if Chantel Cameron doesn't win that fight if Chantel Cameron doesn't knock out Katie Taylor, she's losing the fight. That's all I gotta say. She could be dominant all she wants to, but if she doesn't knock her out, she's losing that fight. So she's got to knock her out or knock her down at least 2 or 3 times to even win that fight. That's all I got to say. Because the reason why I say this because we all know historically Katie Taylor has gotten some controversial decisions in her big fights. Very shady decisions for the most part. Now, to be fair, the fights that she did win in controversial fashion, some of them were, nip and tuck. But at the same time, for the most part, it's like she's always getting the benefit of the doubt from the judges in high profile fights. So that's why I have to hold that against her when it comes to ranking her pound for pound. Number one, I cannot do it because of the fact that Clarissa has dominated all her major fights. She's dominated all of them. So yeah, and Katie hasn't really been dominant in many of her major fights. Maybe a couple of them here and there, but Clarissa has been dominating more than a handful of her major fights. The Hannah Gabriels, she dominated that fight even though she got dropped early on. Christina Hammer, which a fight that I didn't expect her to dominate. She made that fight look easy. Savannah Marshall, a little bit tougher, but she dominated that fight, no question about that. And she definitely beat Franchon Cruz. That was probably one. I think that was. I know that was her first pro fight, but I think that was probably her toughest fight of her career so far. Was the Franchon Cruz fight. So I think we definitely need to see a rematch of that one between Shields and Franchon. So I think that would be a good one. But I mean, Franchon is big though, boy. Carissa's gonna have to deal with that size again, that strength. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyhow, moving along. My thoughts on Tyson Fury's childish behavior on the True Geordie's platform. Now, I know a lot of people had their thoughts and opinion about this, but I thought I'd share my thoughts on this. Add my little 2 cents, I should say. I won't be long, but all I gotta say is that Tyson Fury. I know some people go around and talk about how very methodical, how very cynical and cerebral that he is. I get all that, but at the end of the day, he's not as smart as people make him out to be. He is not. And Tyson Fury in his own mind believes he's probably the smartest guy in the world, but he isn't. The fact is that when he goes on a platform where he knows or he gets a sense that he's not getting any type of sycophantic approach from the interviewer, he doesn't like it one bit. He throws a tantrum like a little brat that that's been deprived since growing up or deprived since growing up, whatnot. and he just loses it. And he start hurling insults, threatening people, like as if he's winning the the world the war of words. I'm like, dude, and I'm glad True Jordy maintained his position on this line of questioning, and he wasn't being disrespectful at all, because the way True Jordy was angling it is like, look, I'm a big fan of yours. I've bought your books, I've been to your fights, I've supported you, whatnot, I've defended you, but it's just the gist of it. He's saying there's just no way I can sit here and agree to the fact that you're stifling fans over this Chisora fight. And that's what Tyson Fury could not handle, that type of pressure. In fact, it wasn't even that much pressure. To me, True Jordy was trying to give these, the way he was trying to angle these questions, the way he was delivering them, was somewhat bit of a softball approach, but at the same time, he wanted to maintain a balanced position of, hey, we need answers. Why are you trying to sell this fight that's meaningless? And yet, again, Tyson Fury, being an idiot and a child that he is, when he's getting challenged like this, he was trying to be deflective. He's trying to bring up the fact that, oh, well, nobody wanted to see me fight Deontay Wilder the third time. That turned out to be a great fight. But yeah, the difference is that True Jordy pointed out perfectly, is that what the difference is with the Wilder fight is that, one, Wilder had an obligated rematch clause. That's number one. Number two, he was at his peak. He's far more dangerous than Chisora at this time. And he put you down 4 or 5 times. Actually, 4 times. So this is no different. I'm not saying no different. This is very different from Chisora. A man who's lost, 3 of his last 4 fights, who's lost 12 fights on his record. He barely got by Kubrat Pulev in his last fight. Punch resistance is not the same. He's much slower than we've ever seen him. His conditioning is pretty terrible now. So, and yeah, that's exactly what True Jordy is pointing out. And Tyson Fury is like, well, why are you slagging me off like this? And then he felt like he's being disrespectful. This is just a childish behavior, man. And the fact that he started the interview saying, I got 40 minutes, so make it, so we got to wrap this up. It seemed to me at that point he was agitated because he knew the line of questioning was coming in. Perhaps True Jordy gave him a heads up and said, hey, these are the questions we're going to ask you. All right. And maybe they got a little bit of an argument in the background. I'm just speculating. I don't know. Maybe they got into some bit of a disagreement in the background before they aired the interview. And True Jordy, reaffirmed his position, saying, you know what? I got to give the fans what they want. I owe that to them. So if you don't want to answer the question, you can answer any way you want to. But I got to ask the question. That's probably what Joe Jordy told him. And that's when Tyson Fury got so angry at the beginning of the interview, because he knew what the line of question that was coming his way. And he didn't want to answer it. So the best way he could do from a strategic standpoint is try to deflect, be insulting, and act like a little prick, like as if he's going to win fans over. And apparently that kind of backfired on me, because everybody chastised him for the way he behaved in that interview. Have you noticed ever since that interview, we haven't seen Tyson Fury ever since? Maybe he's making some posts here and there on Instagram and whatnot, but we haven't seen him doing it in interviews. I know some of the sickle Fury fanboys are going to talk about, well, he's actually concentrating on training, so why should he be going out there doing interviews? Like, well, that hasn't stopped him from doing many interviews leading up to his fights. So I noticed after that interview, he's kind of disappeared. I mean, to some extent, where he's not doing interviews right now. And I think the reason why he's disappeared, because that interview was a disaster. Let's be honest, it was. It's further set back any promotional attempts on this John Chisora fight, especially at Tottenham. Now, as far as I know, they haven't sold out yet. They have sold out like 50,000 tickets, but according to Dad Raphael, and he perfectly pointed this out, is that, yeah, many of those tickets that were not sold out, that 50,000 tickets that were sold, they're on the secondary market on websites that are double the price. So they haven't sold out. So, yeah, they're actually having trouble moving these tickets right now. Not to say that many people won't show up, but it won't be no 70,000. Maybe 30,000 at best, probably. But they're having trouble moving these tickets right now. And that interview right there what Tyson Fury gave with True Jordy did not really help at all. It did not. So, yeah, he going coming off with his old attitude, his narrative that, well, if you don't want to buy it, buy it. If you want to buy it, great. I get that, but if you want to promote this fight, then maybe that's not the attitude you want to take. That's not the approach you want to give when trying to get people to watch that fight. In fact, that you're trying to stifle people to pay that for pay-per-view. That's what True Jordy is pointing out. He didn't like it. Then he started calling them names when he to end the interview. And before that, I have to say, and I'm glad True Jordy actually pointed out Tyson Fury's relentless contradictions. At one point, When True Jordy asked him, why is this fight so important to you if you care so much about legacy? He's like, I don't care about legacy. I don't care about legacy. And then True Jordy's like, well, really? Then why you call yourself the greatest of all time then? Why you call yourself the greatest of all time? In fact, you said you're the first heavyweight in history to do 2 trilogies. Then that means it's legacy, right? Or the second, you're the first heavyweight champion in history to do 2 trilogies. Then that's legacy, right? And yeah, Tyson Fury just didn't like the fact that he's being called out for his contradictions in an interview. He didn't like it. So, yeah, so the fact is that I'm glad you, Jordy. I applaud him for what he did. And I heard some other responses too from Adi Adalupo. And shout out to Adi, by the way. He is the Zone's correspondent, commentator. And he took more of a diplomatic approach in response to that interview. And he said, look, True Jordy did what he did. He commended for what he did. And he also went into the fact that you wonder why many independent media outlets don't ask Tyson Fury these type of questions. And obviously, there is a reason behind that. It's because the fear of losing access, the fear of being blackballed. And what Addy was pointing out, the reason why most of these independent outlets are fearful of that, because this is pretty much their bread and butter. Because without access, they can't pay their rent, they can't pay their utilities. It gets them by. They got to have that access. So that's why they take certain interviews and use it. That's why they take these softball approaches with certain fighters. That's the way they do it. That's the only way they can make ends meet. So, and I get all that, but I also heard Outlaw Pugilist response to that. Shout out to Outlaw. He said that, in his opinion, that's just a horrible way of trying to make money. Of trying to give these softball approaches to the fear of losing access. He just doesn't really condone that. And I could get Outlaw's point on that, because it's like, well, that just goes to show that you're begging. You're begging for access to make money. I mean, yeah, that's the way it is. I know some of these independent outlets are not going to like that term, but that's what they're doing. They're giving softball questions because they are afraid of losing access. I can name some of them, because one of them actually kind of admitted during the COVID lockdown that she needs access, but I'm not going to mention her name because she might fucking put a strike on my channel if I mention it, because she's been doing that to a lot of uploaders, for what I've heard. Well, actually, you know what? Let me take that back. She only does it when people are using her content without her permission, which is rightfully so, but it is what it is. Yeah, and speaking of Fury, and I got to touch up on this too. This comment that he made about being the first heavyweight champion to fight 2 trilogies, well, he definitely lied about that. And I wish True Jordy would have called him out on that. I would have done that if I interviewed him. I said, with all due respect, champ, you're not the first to do that. In fact, Vander Holyfield did that before you. Muhammad Ali did that before you. Ezra Charles did that before you. Jack Johnson did it before you. So what are you talking about? You're not the first. Those 4 guys did it before you. Ali did it. Frazier did it. Norton did it. Jack Johnson did it. Who else? Ezra Charles did it with Jersey Joe Wilcott. They had 4 fights. So what are you talking about? I wish True Jordy would call him out on it, because he probably been further upset and probably would have hung up the phone during the interview. I would have called him out on that. I'm like, nah, you can't. Don't get away. You're not going to get away with that, because you lied one time when he said that he's the first heavyweight champion in history to win all 4 major belts. That's a lie. He is not the first heavyweight champion in history to win all 4 major belts. Riddick Bowe was the first one to do that. He was the first. That was at the time when the WBO was not the recognized belt. But Riddick Bowe did win that belt. And since the WBO is recognized, it became into recognition back in 2007, I believe, or 2006. Then all the champions that held that belt before the inception to being recognized, they all retroactively got recognized as world champions. So Riddick Bowe deserves that credit. And I wish somebody would call him out on that too at the time, but it is what it is. So I'm glad True Jordy called this guy out for his bullshit and maintained his composure that he's a fan. He tried to give him a softball question, but at the same time, he tried to be firm and fair with the question, and Tyson Fury did not like it. And ever since then, he hasn't been giving interviews, because they probably saw that interview was very damaging to their ticket sales to that fight. Probably that's why he stopped doing interviews until that point. So, but yeah, Big Boy does have a legitimate question here. But did they do trilogies as champions, though? That's why they hold the belts. Yeah, well, Ezra Charles did when he fought Jersey Joe Wilcott. He held the belt in his trilogy fight against Jersey Joe Wilcott. He did. It was the third fight, I believe. Yeah, it was the third fight. Jack Johnson, I think it was against Sammy McVeigh. He held the belt as well. Now it's a color title, which is now retroly recognized through the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He held the belt when he fought Sammy McVeigh 3 times. And I think he did he fight Sam Langford 3 times as a color champion as well. I believe he fought him twice, but I don't think it was a trilogy. I have to go back and check. But I think it was Sam McVeigh or George Jeanette, one of those two. As far as Frazier and Ali, Ali was a champion in the first fight against Frazier, whatnot. But the third fight was not a trilogy fight. They were not champions at the time. Same thing with Ali and Norton. I don't think Ali was a champion when he fought Norton in the third fight. But let me check. Let me check on that. I could be wrong. I know the third Frazier fight, they were not champions when they fought. But let me see. All right, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. All right, let's see. All right, let's see. Should know this off the top of my head, but that's why I always got to check to make sure. All right, so he fought. Actually, yeah, he actually Ali did fight Norton when he was a champion. He was a champion in their trilogy fight. Yeah, he was. He was a champion in their trilogy fight. In fact, he was also a champion in the third fight against Frazier. There we go. So, yeah, Ali was a champion. In fact, Holyfield was a champion too when he fought Ruiz. No. He wasn't a champion when he fought Ruiz in the trilogy. No, he wasn't. He was a challenger going in because I think he lost his belt in the second fight, and the third fight was a draw. But in the Riddick Bowe fight, the third fight, that was not a. They didn't have a title. So Ali was a champion in both the Norton and the Frazier trilogies. He was. So so we caught Tyson Fury on a total lie there. He's not the first world heavyweight champion to do 2 trilogies. No, he's not. He's not. So if anybody goes out and says, well, if you put it in context, he means he's the first active world champion in a trilogy. No, he wasn't. He isn't. Ali is the first active champ. No, actually, Ezra Charles, or no, Jack Johnson was the first active champion going to a trilogy fight. Heavyweight champion, that is. Then after that was Ezra Charles, and then after that was Muhammad Ali, obviously, and that was it. So yeah. So we got Tyson Fury right here on a pretty bad contradiction. Oh well, not contradiction, a lie. Again, somebody needs to call him out on that next time they do an interview. When he does an interview again, I guess after the Durst Resort fight, he'll do interviews. But at that point, he ain't doing no more interviews until the fight happens. Yeah, either way, he is an idiot. I just thought I'd share my thoughts on how idiotic and stupid that he is. You know, giving a disaster interview and acting childish and amateurs by insulting the interviewer and threatening him and whatnot and thinking you're gonna win fans over based off doing that. Yeah, he got like 10% of those sycophants who would support him for what he did. But other than that, majority of them are not a favor of what he did, his behavior. And they called him out on it, rightfully so. And ever since then, he's been gone a little ghost. Yeah, he's still probably posting with his training workouts and sparring whatnot with people, but other than that, he hasn't been talking to people ever since that Drew Jordy interview. It was a disastrous interview. I'm sure Frank Warren's seen it. We all know he's seen it. Bob Aaron's seen it, and like, oh, they're scratching their heads like, what the fuck? Now this is going to hamper their ticket sales based off that interview. So yeah, thought I'd throw in my 2 cents on that. All right. Last thing I want to talk about here. Well, not last thing. One of the few things I want to talk about is has Anthony Joshua mentally checked out? I know I did. Yeah. Shout out to Ernest Terry. Exactly. It was 75 for Frazier, 76 for Norton. So Ali was a champion both of those trilogies, going into their third 3 trilogy fights. He was a champion. So again, Tyson Fury was caught out on a lie. He's not the first active champion to go into into active trilogies. No, he isn't. He's a liar. Again, I hope somebody brings this up. If someone interviews him, I will bring it up in his face. It's like, well, you said that, but that's totally incorrect. You're not the first. Actually, Muhammad Ali did that before you. And before that, Ezra Charles did that with Jersey Joe Wilcott when he was the heavyweight champion in their third fight. And then you had Jack Johnson, who was an active color champion in his trilogy fight. I guess it was either I'm not Joe Jeanette or Sammy McVeigh. It's one of those two. I have to go back and check. So yeah. So, anyways, let's talk about this real quickly. I know this is a sensitive topic, so I did talk about Matchroom's so-called, the zone's financial crisis. But we got to talk about PBC momentarily, man. Look, I have supported PBC and their outfit, but things have been kind of stale for the PBC as of late. Yeah, I know they still got active cards going on, and they are putting on better cards than like Golden Boy, for example. Obviously, but the question is funding. We got to bring this up because the reason why I'm bringing this up because you got fighters are complaining that they can't get dates right now, and I have to point out that that the Jamel Charlo and the Tim Tszyu fight is not till next year, and they made a deal before when the WBO ordered that fight earlier this year or mid this year, and they're not fighting till next year, which is kind of strange to me. I was like, why are we waiting till next year? And I'm thinking, maybe because of financial problems. I don't know, but given the fact that they're putting all their shows on pay-per-view, in which, by the way, the production, Fox production doesn't mind because they're not fitting the bill for it. All they're doing is splitting the pay-per-view revenue. That's fine with them. But to me, it's like all these fighters are not getting guarantees from the looks of it. And maybe Al Heyman is only doing this right now until he can secure funding from another capital equity firm. I don't know. Or not capital, but equity firm. And I don't know what's going on with PBC because things doesn't look good right now. And in fact, the rumor mill is that that Paramount, which owns the Showtime, they're going to remove all the Showtime content and defer it over to their Paramount Plus app. Now, what does that mean for PBC? Now, I know Adrian Broner had hinted that PBC is going through some financial troubles right now where a lot of fighters are going to have go elsewhere and they can't secure any more dates. Now, we all know Adrian Broner could be bullshit, but maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know. But we do know that they made the the David Benavidez and the Caleb Plant fight. Now, the fight's been signed. Let's just hope they can get through it. Let's hope they can, because anything can happen between now and January. But other than that, yeah, man, just things doesn't look good, especially a lot of fighters are complaining not getting dates. Fighters are thinking about going elsewhere. They're not getting guarantees right now, which also makes me bring up the ERROL Terence Crawford situation, because Terence Crawford has spoken out recently, and he's saying part of the reason why that the fight fell through because Terence wanted to bring in another equity partner to secure the fight. And both fighters, which is Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, I believe this is the gist of it. They were going to get $25 million each. Al Heyman wasn't having it. So he was like, I don't know, to words to the effect that if anybody's going to do this fight, it's going to be me. No outside interference or something like that. I don't know. But it seems what Terence was implying that these guys were not willing to work with him to some extent to fund the fight. Okay? Then Errol Spence chimed in talking about you're not telling the truth. So it's a lot of back and forth between the two. This is the reason why this is going to be my first and final thoughts about this, because initially Errol Spence seemed like he wasn't keen on the fight. He's given us many signs about this for a few years now. And now Terence Crawford is the one backing out. He's the one that ducked the fight. He's given his reasons why he backed out in negotiations, maybe legitimate reasons, but a duck is a duck. Maybe he could have waited a little bit longer, but it is what it is. Now Spence is stuck with mandatories. The rumor mill is that his next opponent is going to be Keith Thurman. All right. I know Jerome Boots Ennis put in a petition with the IBF to get that mandatory ordered, but we haven't heard from that, so we'll wait and see. But anyhow, it's not looking good on PBC land right now. I mean, I'm being fair, I'm being consistent here, because the same thing's going on with Matchroom and the Zone, where they're being budgetly constrained right now. By the way, the Zone had to reduce their workforce a little bit further in their London headquarters. So they reduced their workforce, and they're focusing more on their stronger markets. So what does that mean for the UK right now? What does that mean for the US? I don't know, but what's been reported is that they're reducing a lot, some headcount in both regions, in the US and the UK. So yeah, things are not looking good over this zone either. Same thing with the PBC. So man, boxing is definitely going to, definitely going to have some challenges going into the new year, especially when inflation is at an all-time high. So, in most parts of the world, yeah, it's sad. Too many fighters are rooting, on the shelf. It's sad. Yeah, exactly, man. Mala says the best thing for boxing is PBC collapse. You know what? I'll say this, Mala. I thought that same sentiment when HBO collapsed. I thought that was good for boxing when that happened, but in actuality, looking back at it, maybe it wasn't good for boxing when HBO collapsed because HBO had a lot of history there. It was a lot of history. They put on a lot of great, memorable Hall of Fame fights throughout the decades, and it was. And in looking back at it in hindsight, it was sad to see them go and get out of boxing the way they did. And I know over the later years, they were, they changed their platform to where it was going to be more focused on the Eastern European fighters. There's nothing wrong with that. But the angle and the narrative that they were running with that is that the Eastern European fighters are the end of be all. And they were all creating this narrative against the American fighters, like Andre Ward. It's like, it was disgusting. I'm like, what? Wait a minute here. I'm like, especially with the first Kovalev fight. Say what you will about that fight. It was not a robbery, as people make it out to be. And the fact that they ran this narrative that, well, you got American judges, so of course American judges going to go for the American. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, nobody said this when Kovalev got a gift decision over Darnell Boone the first fight. American judges scored it for Kovalev when he got knocked over the place in that fight where Darnell Boone should have won. But it is what it is, right? So nobody wants to bring that up. Okay. But the fact is that HBO, when they left, it was not good for boxing when they left. Because now we got the zone, and the zone has, been disruptive, and that's a good thing. But if you look back at HBO's production quality and look at the zone's production quality, HBO was much better than the zone. Much better. Much better quality than the zone production-wise. Commentators-wise, much better. It's like now, you know, I wouldn't say it's the best thing for boxing for the PBC to collapse. I want the BBC to succeed. I want the zone to succeed. I want the Sky to succeed. I want ESPN to succeed. In fact, ESPN is doing good right now. I think they seem to be satisfied with the top ranked contract in their deal so far, for the last 5-6 years now. So they seem to be satisfied with that. But I want all platforms to succeed. I mean, the fact is that yes, you can root for one another, but the only thing I hope for the PBC to do is just they need to make some significant changes. And I think the mistake that Hal Heyman did is that he gave away so much financial resources to fighters to take on non-competitive fights and paid them at an astronomical amount of purses. And they all got too comfortable. They all got complicit. And word from the grapevine is that the reason why some of these fighters can't get dates because Al Heyman won't allow them to get dates because he's asking them to take on tougher competition. They're refusing to do it. So he's shelving them. That's the word. That's the word for the grapevine. That's the rumor I heard. So that's part of the reason why they're not fighting, because of the fact that they're not willing to take risks. They want to continue to take on easy opposition and make a lot of money out of it, like they were doing in the beginning. But when times change, some people don't like change. That's like that in the workforce. When things are going good, things are going great, to your perspective, you don't want things to change. But when an organization changes the structure of how they operate, then people don't like that. So, yeah, I think that's what's going on here with the PBC. I mean, again, I think it's mostly due to financial stuff. That's all due to Al Heyman. That's all, self-inflicted, in my opinion. But at the same time, part of the reason why these fighters are not getting dates because they're refusing to take on stiff opposition. That's what I heard. I can't confirm that to be true, but that's what I heard. So, yeah. What else is here? And then you got BLK Prime that's getting into the boxing circuit. So we'll see how that goes right now. And I've seen some guys over there all of a sudden switching over to BLK Prime because Blue Bud is the one who's there, one of their key advisors over that platform. And he helped broker a deal for Terrence Crawford to go over there and fight on that platform along with Adrian Broner. And I heard Dimitri Andre signed on that platform too. So he's got two of the three, in my opinion, are marquee fighters. Adrian Broner, I don't know. He's still in his redemption stages. I mean, he's been in redemption stages for the last 5 years now, so I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll see. But other than that, yeah, now they're turning on the PBC. I mean, we all know why they're doing it, because at the end of the day, it's all about making money. It's all about trying to get that stipend and commission from Black Prime. That's just my opinion, but but let them do them. That's all I gotta say. Jessica looked like she had just showed up after a night out clubbing. Yeah, man, I don't know what she did. Did she even get enough sleep? Did she, I think obviously she trained, but did she get enough sleep? I mean, because of the time zone. I mean, because you're not Abu Dhabi, boy. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Dubai. You're out there clubbing. You're out there. The nightlife is like gorgeous. Well, obviously, Dubai nightlife is a lot better than Abu Dhabi. Well, it's better than Abu Dhabi's, but yeah, I guess she was like clubbing. I mean, she was out partying before the fight. I don't know, man, but it seems like she just showed up as like, fuck it, I can't like win this. I'm gonna just collect my check and go home. I mean, she did put up an effort at the end of the fight. She did the best she could in the later rounds, but it was just too late. That's all I can say about her. And then she will come back. She'll come back. She'll be, she'll definitely rebound from this, but it's going to get much tougher from her after this fight, because after Chantelle Cameron, you got Amanda Serrano, you got the Natasha Jonas, the Terry Harpers, you got who else? Yeah, you got a lot of fighters, tough fighters, you got to worry about, whatnot. So yeah, that damn fight could go to hell all I care. It was never going to get made anyway. I'm disgusted the way the welterweight division screwed themselves. I mean, yeah, it's just bad. It's bad all around. I mean, it's a deep division, but just not many fights are getting made there. It's sad. It's kind of like the middleweight division. I mean, the middleweight division is a pretty good division. I mean, it's gotten better over the years. It's kind of like the same thing with that one when the DAZN had the middleweight division on lock, but they just couldn't get the fights made. They got a couple of them here and there, but other than that, not the major ones like the Golovkin and Charlo. Well, Charlo fights on the zone, so obviously that probably wasn't going to happen. But at the same time, Golovkin did not want to fight the eliminator against Charlo, so he ducked that fight. Then you had, Andrade versus Golovkin. Golovkin didn't want that fight. You had Canelo versus Andrade. Golovkin didn't want. I mean, Canelo didn't want that fight. Derevchenko and Golovkin got made based off the IBF mandatory order, but after that fight, many people felt that Golovkin lost that fight. He didn't want to give Derevchenko a rematch, so that was a rematch. The zone messed up. They could have made. They screwed that up because they gave Golovkin too much leeway there. It's like many middleweight fights could have got made. Great middleweight fights could have got made at the zone, and they didn't happen. Same thing with the PBC. It's like, you get some good welterweights fight made here and there, but it's like they got the middleweight division on lock, and they're not making those fights. Same situation. Same thing with the middleweight division, as you want to call it. So yeah, Mala says HBO was good for boxing. PBC has too many fighters fighting once a year. They can't afford the fighters they have on their roster. Yeah, that is in part too. There's many variables why the PBCs, and that's why I wonder, are they in a financial crisis right now, or is it that Heyman is penalizing them because they're not willing to take the risks? Like, again, it all goes to the fact that Heyman was the one that created this platform. He created this structure where he was going to take care of these guys, give them what they want initially, and then hopefully they'll come around and take on tougher opposition. Some of them have done it, but many of them seems like they're unwilling to do so because they still want to get these easy paydays and then call it a day. It's like most of these fighters are in it for the money, not so more so to create a good legacy. That's my opinion. That's the way I see it. I mean, we all want to get paid, but at the same time, if you're not going to take on tough fights, then what are you going to do? Going to sit around? Hopefully that you hold out long enough that Heyman's going to give you a date because he's got to make money off of you one way or the other. I mean, that's probably what they're doing, but it is what it is. HBO should have just focused on their best fighters regardless of where they came from. Yeah, exactly. That's a mistake they made. They did diversify their roster. Again, they made their platform more Eastern European centric. And I think that's part of the reason why they had a fallout with fans, especially in the American audience. They had a fallout with their fans and their audience. It just their direction was off in their later years, and that yeah, it was sad to see him go. Looking at hindsight, it was devastating for boxing to see HBO leave. At first, I was jumping for joy. I ain't gonna lie, because I didn't like their direction in their later years. But again, looking back at the hindsight, it was pretty bad for boxing for seeing them go. It gave boxing a bit of a black eye. I know the zone came in at the right time to fill in that void, but the zone so far, production quality wise, not saying it's bad. It's a pretty good production quality, but looking at it versus HBO production quality, HBO's production quality is much better. That's just my opinion. My opinion. So yeah. Moving along here. Is Anthony Joshua mentally checked out? I got to talk about this real quickly. This is the last topic of the day, and I'm gonna call this live stream off. But now Anthony Joshua was in Abu Dhabi yesterday, for the event, right? And the one thing I got to point out is that he's lost some weight. He looks a lot lighter than he did in the second Usyk fight. So to me, he's walking around probably around maybe 232, maybe 233. That's his optimal weight, but he looks a lot lighter, and he's lost some definition in his arms too. He's still a big guy, but he's lost some definition, muscle definition. So besides the point, he gave a few interviews in Abu Dhabi. He was asked a series of questions about his situation, about when he's going to come back, about Tyson Fury, and about Deontay Wilder. I gotta say one thing. When I say that he's mentally checked out, I think he is, because the way he was handling himself in those interviews with Into Boxing and with behind the gloves of Michelle Joy Phelps and at IFL, it seemed like he did not want to be there at all. He seemed like he did not even want to talk about boxing. The fact that he keep mentioning that he may have to take some time off, which he should do. I know he was, supposedly he was supposed to be lined up to fight at the end of the year, and I said that was a mistake because he's mentally checked out. He hasn't gotten over those Usyk loss, and he still hasn't gone over the Ruiz loss, and I was proven right. Because now Eddie Hearn's talking about, well, we were talking about January, which is 2 months away. We're looking at maybe March. To me, based off of that interview, I think maybe you need to give Joshua more time than after March. I think you need to give him at least till August of next year, just like Deontay Wilder did. In fact, I think it was a mistake to have Joshua come over there to do some PR and do some media, because he is coming off a bad situation right now. His stock has declined. He's lost 3 of his last 5 fights and got knocked out in one of those fights. Okay. The fact that he's no longer a champion is going to be a long road for him to get, a difficult, I think not a long road, but a difficult road for him to get those titles back. I think it would have been best to keep him away from doing any media right now, because he seemed very rattled. Again, he didn't seem like he wanted to be there. And in fact, if I want to point into that latest Michelle Joy Phelps interview, whenever she was asking him a question, especially about the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, especially the Tyson Fury situation, he didn't even want to talk about the Tyson Fury situation. In fact, in the IFL interview, when Coogan asked him straightforward, who's to blame for that situation, he said that the fight will happen. And Coogan's like, well, I'm asking you, it's one of the biggest fights, but who's to blame why we didn't get that fight this year? He said the fight will happen. To me, that was an indication that Joshua did definitely duck that fight, which we all know he did. Okay, he just confirmed it right there that they walked out of that negotiations. All right, and I don't quite blame him for him, because if he had agreed to that fight, he was going to lose anyway. But the fact is that he's admitted, and some of these people are still saying that Anthony Joshua did not duck that fight, but he did. He admitted it right there in that interview with Coogan, indirectly, that they avoided that fight. Again, I don't blame him for it, but it is what it is. A duck is a duck. So besides the point, though, he did not want to talk about Tyson Fury. He did not want to talk about Deontay Wilder. even though there's been reports that they've been, both sides have been talking about making that fight for next year, it seems like he's not really keen about it at all. And either he's not much keen about the Fury fight. Again, in the Michelle Joy Phelps interview, every time when there was two occasions where she was asking him questions, he would just abruptly push her to the side when people were walking through, like DIMITRY Bivol's coaches or somebody else will walk through, and he was like ask for a picture. And Michelle Joy Phelps was looking at him with like a smile of disappointment. I call it a smile of disappointment because she looked very upset and rattled when he kept doing that twice, where he kept like not interrupting her, but I hate to say it, rudely bypassed her where she was asking him questions in the middle of an interview segment to chat with some people and pretend that the camera's not rolling. The next thing you know, she just abruptly cut the interview. She cuts the interview, and he said, "Oh, is there anything else you want to ask me?" He said, "No, we got to cut it. Thank you, AJ." That was it. And she did not look pleased at all about that interview. I mean, someone wonder, well, why did she post the interview anyway? I mean, she did. The fact that she wasn't pleased about it, obviously, it goes back to access because people like Michelle Joy Phelps need to make money, and I don't blame her. So that's her income. She's got to make money because if she didn't post an interview with Anthony Joshua, she doesn't get her views. She doesn't get her monetization. Even though it was that bad. It was a bad interview, okay? Now, the Coogan one, that was just as bad because at the end of it, he just was eager to walk away. And before Coogan said thank you for the interview, AJ, he immediately walked away before Coogan said thank you to him. So, again, in my opinion, I think that I think it was a mistake for Eddie Hearn or Matchroom, Frank Smith, whoever, to ask him to go out there in Abu Dhabi and do some media and some press to help support the event. I think that was a mistake, and it makes me wonder him signing that lifetime contract with Matchroom, was that a mistake? And before the AJ fanboys jumped on my throat, I'm just throwing the question out there, and it's a very, very legitimate question. Was it a mistake for him to sign that contract? Because it seems like now Matchroom's getting him to do things that he doesn't want to do. But unfortunately, he's contracted obligated to not only show up for the fights, but he also got to do certain promotions as well, as far as media is concerned. I think that's what's entailed in the contract. So, to me, I think Joshua needs to take the Deontay Wilder approach. You suffer two bad back-to-back losses. You mentally checked out. Step away from the scene for a while, man. Give him a year. I mean, what I mean by that is, well, August has been 3 months now. I say give him till next August, man, because he does not seem like he wants to talk about. He doesn't want no part of boxing right now. It doesn't seem like it. And the fact that Hearn is talking about pushing back his return date going into the year to March, that goes to show that they don't know if he's going to be ready by then. I don't think he will be, based off that his attitude is an approach yesterday. I don't think he is. I think you need to give him some more time off, at least to the end of August of next year. Let him enjoy himself, man. Let's not even talk about boxing. So, yeah, man, that's just my opinion. I mean, he looks mentally rattled and checked out based off those interviews that he gave yesterday. I really think that's the case. And I said this after that Usyk loss, that he was mentally gone, and nobody believed me. Not nobody, but many of these AJ fanboys literally say, well, he didn't get knocked out. He not mentally checked out. I was like, yes, he is. The way that man behaved after that loss, yeah, he lost his mind. He mentally cracked, and he showed behaviors of that lingering from the Usyk loss. He did in those interviews. So, yeah, man, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. The way he brushed off Michelle Joy Phelps in a pretty rude and disrespectful way, and the way he walked out, not saying walked out of the interview, but he walked out of the Coogan interview before Coogan said thank you, before he could wrap up. He had his back turned to Coogan before Coogan said thank you for the interview. So, I know, some people say you're reading too much into that, Dan. I'm like, nah, man, Joshua doesn't usually do that. He usually stands in front of the frame when the interview is cut. But he didn't do that with Coogan. He just seemed eager that he wanted to get out of there. In fact, some people are also going to say, well, it was very late in the evening. I mean, late in the evening in Abu Dhabi, so maybe he was tired. Yeah, but even when a fighter is tired, you still have a few seconds to stand there and wait for the interview to cut in frame. Don't just abruptly walk away before you cut the frame. I mean, before you cut the interview. But anyway, that's just my opinion on it. Ernest Seri says people keep saying that IBF don't play with mandatories, but Spence hasn't fought an IBF mandatory since Ocampo 4 years ago. Why don't they enforce and boost mandatory? They even stripped Canelo once. Yeah, I mean that's a good question. It's been 4 years, but the fact that, to be fair, Earl Spence has been fighting other mandatories. He's fought the WB, the W. Let me see. He fought Sean Porter in a unification bout. Then he fought Ugas. So he got some exemptions. So that's okay. As long as you file the exemptions in a timely manner, the IBF can be a little reasonable. But if they're only going to give you one exemption, there's a rotation. But at that point, if if you don't defend your belt in a certain time frame, they're going to call it. So we haven't heard yet from the IBF about the Boots mandatory situation. And Boots did put in a petition for them to force it. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, Mala says that AJ pretty much is washed up. He'll lose to Fury and Wilder is a major threat to him. Yeah, based off those those interviews and his attitude towards the Deontay Wilder question. Same thing with Eddie Hearn. They seemed like they weren't quite confident that he'd be ready for those fights at this time. In fact, I don't get that part because why is Eddie Hearn actively negotiating a deal with for that fight for next year? I don't get that because it seems like their attitude is totally different when it comes to Deontay Wilder all of a sudden. It seems very weird, bizarre to me, man. Look, again, it's not to say that AJ cannot win that fight, but right now, nah, man. The way he's mentally, um, you know, his mental mindset is right now. I mean, he's checked out right now at the moment. In fact, AJ has admitted in an interview with Adi Adalupo, he admitted that he's got some mental challenges that he has to deal with right now. He said it himself that he's struggling mentally after those losses to Usyk. He said it himself that I have some mental challenges I'm dealing with right now, so I need to take some time off to think. That's exactly what he said. Well, not for verbatim, but if you go back to that interview he did with Ade, he said, the sit down, he said exactly that he's got some mental challenges right now. He's admitted that. Now, as a fighter, I mean, I appreciate his honesty, but as a fighter, active fighter, you don't want to admit that. In fact, he also said that I can physically get ready for a fight, but mentally I'm still having challenges dealing with that. So, yeah, man. Again, it goes back to my initial point and my thought. I think right now, I don't think he'll be ready for early next year. I think you need to give him more time off to think and let him gather himself mentally. Give him more time off until maybe early August. I'm sorry to say that. Maybe July at best, but he ain't gonna be ready early next year based off that interview, those series of interviews, I should say. He's not gonna be ready. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. I appreciate you guys for coming in. Shout out to Mala, Ernest Terry, Mr. Classic Metal, Big Boys in the chat, Boxing Learner, and who else I'm missing here? I think that's all I have. So other than that, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm out. Done. Peace.